Thanks for checking out SYMFONI on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe and like our videos for updates.
I was asking you about the section 50, the tampered section. That's what politicians call it, that it was tampered. Some people say it was doctored. Now, if that section, the National Assembly is the technical committee to the amendment of the Electoral Act is saying that they have decided to take this version, which says voting in election under the bill shall be in accordance with the procedure determined by the Commission, which may include electronic voting, provided, that's the question there, provided that the Commission shall not transmit results of election by electronic means. What do you think?
I think that goes to the root of how much the National Assembly want our election to be transparent. Because for the legitimacy of election is how free, how credible, and how transparent that election is. And for you to, state in a very straight term that you are stopping the transmission of election results through electronic means is in fact is infringing on the right of INEC to organize the election, because as an umpire, they are supposed to determine the modus and processes that is required to conduct election that will make election have credibility, have fairness, and represent the true wishes of the Nigerian people. So for you to state that clearly, that means there's an intention to stop Nigerian people from taking charge of the election. Because for you, what you are looking at is self. Which is a fundamental law of nature is protection, self-preservation. Yes. And that shouldn't be your focus. The focus should be about posterity. Be patriotic enough to do the right thing that is meant to promote the transparency of our elections. And for elections to be transparent, that gives legitimacy to whoever wins. Because our elections have been marred with issues of ballot box snatching, ballot box stuffing, destruction of ballot material, ballot papers. This issue is because of how election result is transported from polling unit to the collation center. And that's where the fraud happens. That's why you find out that election results are manipulated, they are rewritten, and they are represented in another different form. So what INEC is trying to do is not even new. It's what they've been doing. What we're just talking about is so that when people go to court, they'll be able to have backing. That INEC has authority, legitimate authority, to be able to use electronic means in transmitting this election result. They did it in Nasarawa by-election, yes. The state's constituency election. They did it with Edo. They did it with Ondo. And you see how transparent the election it was at that level. And how happy people, were celebrating that this time the election result represent the true wishes of the people of those states. You cannot continue in a system where all you want to do is to suppress voters' right, is to suppress the need for the Nigerian electorate to determine the outcome of an election. So it is wrong that after the consultation process, after the open discussion process, whether with civil society and political parties and other stakeholders, non-state actors, you will now go back, sit in your own committee, and then rewrite this particular section 50, subsection 2, to suit your interests. I'm happy that the certain governors today have spoken and said, no, you must be able to put electronic transmission of results. People, as the world develops, as we are an emerging nation, yes. A developing nation of that matter, we must be able to lead the African Charter to show that we are determined to do what is called a credible election. And that credible election can only come from a transparent process of transporting these election results. Because if you allow this process, the old process of conducting the election and reporting the election and moving it in truck to collation center to continue, this rigging and ballot box snatching will continue. INEC is not even saying they are jettisoning the old process. This is like it's a dual election transmission process we have. While you are still taking those papers to the election result to the collation center, you still have this transmitted advanced copy, which will deter people who are willing to do evil to our election. It will give an advanced knowledge to the public and to journalists who have the fourth state of the realm to be aware of the state of the election, and then leave the final announcement of that result to INEC to announce the winner. But to be sincere with you, if we are not going to have electronic transmission of results for 2023, there's no need to amend the electoral.
Anambra election is on the way, and I'm sure
even for Anambra election, it will go well to helping the election, to give confidence to Nigerian voters. But if there's no need, because there's nothing they are bringing you, they're talking about election, how they call it, expenses. They are talking about how they call it, how many days, 45 days for before a person who is aggrieved, you know, that the party has not been registered can go to court. These issues we have been able to manage and, you know, navigate around this particular issue over the course of our election period. But the issue that is at the center of the failure of our electoral system is the transmission of election results. That is how elections are manipulated from the polling unit to the collation center. That's why you find out the result that is gotten at the polling unit is not the result that you get at the collation center. So for us and for people who have the interest of Nigeria at heart, you must be able to be looking at things that will help promote election transparency, election integrity. That thing, those are the focal point for the people who have been elected as our representatives to be looking at. Because if you don't look at that direction, that means you are looking for it for yourself. And election transparency is at the core center of what we call election legitimacy of election outcome. So for any National Assembly to tamper with the authority given to the Independent National Electoral Commission, the umpire, is like saying that we will determine the outcome of whatever decision you take. So you have to leave it. Let INEC determine whatever method that is best to use to transport the election. If INEC sees that they are using dual transmission electoral process and find out that it's not conducive, that means the power still lies in their hand to revert. So you cannot just put an end to that opportunity that is, you know, looking forward for Nigerians. You can see how Nigerians, the whole Nigerians are behind electoral transmission of results. You know, this system that INEC is using is almost a very safe system. Because you know, you are using the ZPAD to do what they call, you know, open scanning process.
Whatever result you get at the polling units, they snap and then send to the
original copy is still there. You are afraid of if you give a reason for hacking, you are just giving flimsy excuses.
Yes, because they have a copy.
Because the real result is the one that they have. Why you should encourage the INEC determine the process is that so that people can even use that process to do litigation and say you don't go to court and court say no, we don't recognize this process because it is not backed by law. We know in a lot of lawyers will tell you that anything that is not explicitly stated in the constitution, that means it's allowed to be used. Yes. But in the Nigerian system, if it's not clearly stated and if it's done in ambiguity, it will give politicians opportunities to circumvent the right of the people. So for me, and for a lot of Nigerians who have the interest of this nation at heart, we believe that the power to determine how result is transmitted should be left in the hand of our umpire.
All right. Let's quickly come to ARIYO. That is for section 50, subsection 2. Yeah, you know, I don't know. It's like those who go for election, the politicians. I know that you are a politician. The politicians, especially the National Assembly members, are afraid of the transmission of results.
Let me just, I think, probably enlarge what is going on. What I've seen, a combination of what we've seen is section 50 sub 2 and section 65, and also I think section 88. When you read the combination of the doctrine that has happened, a combined interpretation of it gives a sense of what you will call an attempted state capture coup, in the sense that it's symbolic of a group of persons who are trying to do a racket to use the electoral acts to legitimize an organized crime in such a way that will become almost the alpha and omega of an election process. So let me explain. Section 50 sub 2, you bar INEC from electronic transmission of results, right?
But they allowed INEC to do electronic voting.
The electronic voting is just to bamboozle us, so that we'll not be able to see the larger picture. But so what is the essence of you buying a smartphone and you're unable to browse with it? You know, the smartphone has a feature of browsing. So why can't you allow the smartphone to do it? There is no any electronic instrument today or facility that they want to deploy for election that will not have a process or means of transmitting results in the modern day world. Section 65, that's a section that in the original one, I want to use the original and the forged now in my own nomenclature by describing this. In the original one, you will see that I haven't heard from INEC, based on the concern of INEC, especially from what happened in Imo and Abia, when results were declared under duress and some senators were announced. So INEC made a provision that Section 65 of the hold the announcement by a returning officer is actually usually the final. It can only be reviewed by competent court of jurisdiction, by the court of by the tribunal. INEC suggested an amendment which was accommodated by the National Assembly Technical, the Joint Committee, which says that provided that there is a window of 7 days through which this result can be reviewed, it means that even when you have announced result as a returning officer, INEC as a body, especially the headquarters, has 7 days to be able to ascertain if it is true or not, because if peradventure the returning officer informs INEC at the headquarters that I declare these results under duress, then that result will be deemed, null and void, and failing to meet, comply with substantially with the provision of the electoral.
That was in INEC guideline, election guideline.
Absolutely. So you see, that's the second attempt at state election capture. Yes. So they now removed. They've now removed in this forged one.
Can we just see if you can give us that the words in that section?
Section 60
of the final
section
version.
65 of this. I don't want to call it final version. You call it final version. All I'm saying is forged version. Now that window that allows INEC to review this election, that 7 days window, has now been removed from this so-called, the forged version. Then number 3, for you to know that's an attempt at state capture. They now decide to up the spending limit. Now, I am not saying sometimes some of these politicians are not spending more than that, especially in presidential election. But for a nation that is fighting corruption, it is a bad signal. We should be looking at, based on level of poverty in Nigeria, we should even be reviewing the spending cap downward, such that we are able to operate within the territory of where situation have found us, or we have plunged this nation into. The nation have been plunged into poverty, endemic poverty, insecurity. Now, amidst endemic poverty, rising insecurity, they are upping the amount
from 5 billion to 15 billion.
Now, the implication of that is that whoever is going to be the next president is already a corrupt man. It's a corrupt man. It's corruption. So what they are trying to do, actually, I understand certain things, because there are certain elements that are not present in the presidential system of government, because I know there could be some professors and historians who are watching. So let me explain. We borrow a presidential system of government, and we didn't borrow the means of funding a presidential system of government. So when you look at America, that's why you see that despite the fact that Donald Trump is a billionaire, when he was contesting, people contributed money. That's the whole essence of presidential election. That's why you see serving lawmakers are raising money to continue some advocacy that they are doing. That is the whole essence of presidential system. So we borrow a presidential system of government that ought to be funded by the public and the people through their contribution. But now it is, the process of election is being funded solely by individuals and some of their cronies. So it shouldn't be that, because we have found ourselves in this kind of dilemma. Ordinarily, what we should be doing, now that we don't have the culture of what you call fundraising, we don't have the culture of crowdfunding, we don't have the culture of all this kind of a seamless way of funding an election, then what we should be doing, what this National Assembly ought to be doing in terms of election finance reform, is how to bring down the cost of election in Nigeria, because election is more or less like a private business, is funded privately. But what we have now seen is a National Assembly that does not include the spending limit. So in essence, a few politicians, irrespective of maybe political party, but largely maybe the ruling party, now we want to remain in that position because they know that there is what you call poverty level has widened, and the gap between the rich and the poor has widened. The middle class has almost been totally eliminated. So some people want to remain, at the top of the ladder in perpetuity, so that there will not be opportunity for almost anybody, so that if anybody tomorrow is able to rise, it's going to be like a miracle, a lucky escape, which is totally antithetical to the essence of democracy. So that's what the entire provision that they are trying to do, to take the process of electing new leaders from you and I, from those newcomers, except people determined by them and decided by them. So look at so that's why I said it's an attempted coup at state capture through election capture. Because when you have been able to put this in place, it will almost be impossible for any ordinary Nigerian to be able to contest an election except it is endorsed by godfathers. Because with the kind of money they've now put in our electoral laws, you can only have a godfather as a young person for you to be able to contest election. Where are you going to get this kind of money from? And it's symbolic. People may say you may not necessarily have to spend this money, but you see, laws are very important because it has spirit. The spirit of this law would definitely drive the perception of the country, and that is why what they've done is very bad and totally unacceptable. And also, there are other provisions that have been tampered with. For instance, in terms of guaranteeing, sustained funding of INEC and the fact that money should be made available to INEC at least a year or so, and in certain installments. Now, they remove another aspect of that and, leave it in a manner that is going to be difficult for INEC. So you can see, you see what we call strangulation here, prevention there. So totally trying to make INEC like a headless chicken that is, that is probably dictated almost.
Result. One, you're talking about no one should be sworn in 6 months before, the time of election should be conducted 6 months before the expiration of tenure. Are you telling me if a particular party B is the governor of the state and his candidate has won and they say they should go to court, there's no advantage that he will, as sitting executive governor or president, he will still protect the interest of the elected governor? The issue is that if you are saying that between that 6 months, any the governors or the president in charge of the country will step aside. Maybe the chief judge will take control, or the chief judge of the state will take control, and everybody will step aside.
Would that not be?
It is the only way that you can guarantee that there will not be interference. Exactly. With all these ones, cannot guarantee non-interference because the state governor is still a member of the party.
Absolutely.
The president is still a member of the party, and the reason why you see parties, PPA had 2 governors by 2006. By 2007, when we conducted our first election, you see the reason why people are just looking to have more governors in their party is because it reduces the cost of conducting elections for them in the state and also give them opportunity to have control of the state where mobilization becomes very effective and easy. So if that is the purpose, and you are saying the man will not be sworn in, what's the essence? When his party is still in power, when the interest of his party will still be protected. Let's leave all this issue. The way our handover process is organized, I don't think is an issue for now. But the one of burden of proof, yes, burden of proof should be shifted to INEC. Because putting burden of proof on somebody for maybe 170,000, 120,000 pulling before, including with other, how they call it, pulling centers that have been added, you are talking about how many thousand for the person to bring effectively document from that side. And when the court gives an order that you should go and to get a photocopy from INEC, it becomes something you will not be able to get until the tribunal process is over. So shifting burden of proof to INEC is very okay. But there are a lot of other issues, section 3, section 3 or something that they are trying to amend to say that the proposal at first, whatever they change it to, is better for me. Because the proposal at first read, if you look at it in this paper, it reads that 14 days after INEC had refused to register a political party, an association requesting to be a political party, after 14 days, if the party does not challenge that rejection in court, they have lost their right to challenge the. But the one that National Assembly is adjusting to is 45 days, which gives ample time for the rejected association to have their time to prepare their case and go to court. These are issues that we must look at. And not this issue, sincerely, between man and between the process of having a clear court electoral system in Nigeria are not even as important as transmission of a result through electronic means. Yeah. Because people sit down, they are trying to make more law to clog the process so that people see that they are doing a lot of work, but in the real sense that we're running in cycle. We're not moving. It's like motion. It's like a movement without a motion without movement. So they came up again and be talking about 15 billion. You state it in the Electoral Act that the person contesting for presidency must have 15 billion. Like he said, in an American election, it is funded by the people. But it is not the fault that there has to be a law for people to fund election for a candidate in Nigeria. It is because the people does not believe you are going to represent them. That's why they are not putting their money for you to go and win the election. And because of the bastardization of the electoral system, where people now carry money and share to electorate, So the people now believe that no matter how progressive you are, no matter how ideologically driven that you are, you form a political party, they are now telling you, you are telling them to come and contribute money. They tell you why party A and party B give you money. Why can't you give money? They don't understand that the reason these ones are giving money is because they still enjoy the apparatus of state management and resources. So in the overall sense of the discussion, yes, these are small pocket issues that we can review in subsequent elections. Our fight is how to get election actually that will represent the true wishes and true interest of the Nigerian people. Because the Constitution states that people will belong to a political party, a labor union, where their right and interest will be protected. If this right and interest is not protected via ballot system, that means people will continue to lose interest in our electoral system. And the more people lose interest, and the major of the focus, like I tell young people, when they're not too young to law, DB will pass, because of the experience I had with managing political party, I said, look, this bill is very good. But the issue is that, do you have the resources? You understand? Do you have the enabling environment to go and win a free and fair election? We need to create an enabling environment. And it's about patriotism. The National Assembly must come. It's at the heart of their patriotic responsibility to people of this country, for them to look at clauses. I saw things they've done that is good, and I saw the one that will destroy what they have done that is good. Whatever they have done, that they say they have done, with the transmission of electoral result, and stating it clearly, if it's not meant for mischief, or meant to be able to cheat the Nigerian people out of their right, you can't state something like that so clearly. The process, they should sit with INEC and look at the process that INEC is using. As a person who is not even in the commission, I've tried personally on my own to investigate this process, to interrogate this process, and I've seen that this process, since it's a dual electoral transmission process, it is safe and it is easy for us to be able to block a lot of things. There will not be need for waylaying of electoral van on the road, because it will be useless. That result would have already gotten to the collation center. And at the last Edo election, you could, if I don't know if you use that the portal, you could download the result. Exactly. Yes. As it's going. I did. I was following the result. Before the final result. They are still on my phone. You could you can be downloading the result from putting it. I'm very sure that the Edo result would have gone somehow against somebody if that election was not conducted with that technology. I am very sure, because this transparency. When you want to govern people, you can't force yourself on the people. It's about the legitimacy, the authority given to you to govern people is that joy that you receive. And I tell Nigerian young people, yes, it's good to protest NSAS. It's good to protest non-payment of salary. But the core foundation for changing Nigeria is in the political system. It is in political authority and political power. And politics determine the cost of garri, the cost of beans, the cost of groundnut oil, the cost of pepper in a larger society. So if you want to be able to change that, you must get interested in the electoral process. Okay. And the electoral process, I want to state one thing. The problem that the Nigerian electorate has is that they focus too much on election day issue, going to vote. Whereas that is just one byproduct of the electoral process. There's a pre, there's a during, and there's a post-election system that vigilance must be put on. And one of these that people must go out. If there's anything in this Nigeria that people should have protested on, is the removal of electronic transmission from our electoral act. Okay. Yes, before we go, let's quickly get your view, because this is just the beginning of this discussion.
Let me just say something to what you said, and I think I appreciate the fact that it was able to talk that if we're able to do electronic transmission of results, we will have been able to solve some of the problems. You see, I think we should be forward-looking in terms of how to eliminate judicial intervention in our elections. We should put in place a process that will ensure free, fair, credible, and transparent elections. We have no business always resorting to litigations, and this National Assembly can do that by encouraging and strengthening INEC. And in an era of insecurity, we need to eliminate, the infusion of human responsibility in our electoral process, something that technology can help us to do. We shouldn't shy away from it now that security has risen to a very alarming level. And also, let me say this, like you also said, in terms of funding of our election, that it was because the election became bastardized. That's why people are no longer supporting it. But that's very true. That is factually correct in what we saw in the southwest of this country between 1999 and 2003. People came out. The governors of the Southwest in 1999, some of them could not afford a car. Could not afford a car. They were voted in. Go to Oyo State, go to Ogun State, go to some of these places. People voted because it was pro-Awo, Afenifere, pro-Afenifere, and all of that. That's Alliance for Democracy, 6/6 in the Southwest. So right. that's because, but when the people now got tired, they didn't get value for thumb and for the power of their exercising their franchise, no value, for voting, then our election became a very bad process, monetized and all of that. So this National Assembly ought to have listened to the report of international and local observers, work within that framework. INEC did a good job collating some of these things and making it available to them. And also in addition to that, INEC has demonstrated two things here. That's why some of us don't want to criticize INEC for now. One, the issue of electronic transmission of results, which INEC has done, snap and send. The only thing INEC can use to complement that is real-time collation, such that you send the real data and you are sending it real-time, is hard enough, such that 1 hour after election, all results are known.
Out.
That's real-time. Another thing INEC has done, which INEC has also demonstrated in the FCT election, is that almost 10 months before the next election, candidates have emerged. The next FCT election is in February 2022. The candidate emerged, I think, last month.
Yes.
So it shows that we want to put in place a process whereby there will be pre-election matter must have been completed and concluded. And that's also will take burden away from the political party. Look at what we are seeing in Anambra now. So we need that number of period to be able to address some of our concerns and all of that. So I think that this National Assembly, they have between now and tomorrow morning to be able to do what is right, and also on the floor of the House, and those who have conscience.